My mom had installed a hidden camera at our country house near Chicago, just to keep the place safe. I never told my mother-in-law about it when she went there for the weekend to feed the chickens. On Monday, I opened the footage. What I saw made my hands tremble, but I steadied my breath, picked up the phone, and called my husband. I said only one thing: "Your mother is a monster." Hello, dear friends. Please tell us in the comments which city or country you're watching from. It's always interesting to see where our viewers are. Enjoy the story. It was Thursday evening in Naperville, Illinois, and the world outside Linda Carter's kitchen window looked peaceful. Too peaceful for what was about to start. The late October sun was slipping behind the maples, painting the quiet suburban street gold. Linda was wiping the counter after dinner when her phone buzzed. The caller ID made her blink. Evelyn Carter, her mother-in-law. Evelyn rarely called. She preferred long voicemails full of Bible quotes or holiday recipes no one asked for. Linda hesitated, then answered. "Hi, Mom. Everything okay?" Evelyn's voice came cheerful, almost giddy. "Linda, sweetheart, I was just thinking. It's been a while since I went out to your place near Aurora. I could help around the yard this weekend, maybe feed the chickens, pull some weeds. What do you say?" Linda froze for a moment. Evelyn hated that property. Every time they'd mentioned it, she complained about dirt, bugs, and how people in the suburbs waste their time pretending to be farmers. "You want to come work in the garden?" Linda asked, cautious. "Oh yes, I miss fresh air. Being cooped up at home isn't healthy. I thought I'd take the bus or call a cab." "A cab? That's an hour's drive, Mom." Evelyn laughed, light but sharp. "I'll manage, darling. Don't you worry about me." Linda hung up, uneasy. For 30 years, Evelyn had avoided that yard like it carried disease. Now she suddenly wanted to spend a weekend there alone? Something didn't add up. She made a note to tell Greg, her husband, when he got back from the repair shop. But when he came home, greasy and exhausted, she let it slide. He dropped onto the couch, turned on the news, and said only, "Let her go if she wants. Maybe she finally decided to be useful." Later that night, Linda called her mother, Martha, to vent. Martha laughed softly. "That's funny, honey. I was going to tell you. I installed a security camera out there last week. Tiny thing, smaller than a button. You can check the feed from your phone." "You did what?" Linda asked. "Theft's been bad in that neighborhood," Martha said matter-of-factly. "A young guy helped me set it up in the shed. Motion activated. Record straight to the app. I'll text you the password." Linda smiled despite herself. Her mother, 75, setting up tech better than half her students used to. "Okay, Mom. Thanks. Just hope it works." "It does," Martha assured her. "And you'll thank me if someone steals your lawn chairs again." Linda promised to look at it later, then forgot. She had papers to grade, laundry to fold, and Greg already snoring upstairs. The night passed quietly except for the hum of the fridge and the steady tick of the wall clock. Friday morning began like any other. Greg left early for work. Linda poured coffee and glanced at the cloudy sky. Then her phone rang again. Evelyn, bright and chipper. "Just confirming, sweetheart. I'll head to the house tomorrow morning. Got my bags packed. Can't wait to see those chickens." Linda frowned. "Bags? How long are you staying?" "Oh, just overnight," Evelyn said breezily. "Maybe 2 nights. We'll see how I feel." 2 nights? Linda opened her mouth, then stopped herself. No point arguing. "Okay, just be careful. The road gets slippery if it rains." "I'll be fine, dear," Evelyn said. "Don't fuss." When Linda hung up, her stomach twisted with a feeling she couldn't name. Evelyn sounded rehearsed, like she was reading from a script. Saturday morning arrived gray and cool. Linda was scrubbing the floor when the doorbell rang. Evelyn stood on the porch in a dark jacket, rubber boots, and a floral scarf knotted under her chin, like she'd stepped out of another decade. Beside her were 3 bulky bags. "Morning, darling," Evelyn said brightly. "Just dropping by before I head out. Greg's still asleep." "In the shower," Linda said. "Mom, what's with all this? Planning to move there?" "Oh, just food for the chickens, tools, a few little things." Linda nodded, though nothing about this felt normal. The way Evelyn's eyes darted around the hallway, as if checking what to remember, what to avoid. Greg came out wiping his hands on a towel. "Morning, Mom. Going farming now?" Evelyn smiled. "Something like that." When Greg offered to drive her, she refused instantly. No, I'll take an Uber. Fresh air and independence never hurt anyone." Linda and Greg exchanged a look. Evelyn, taking Uber? The same woman who once walked 3 blocks to save $2 on parking? She watched from the window as Evelyn hauled her bags to the curb and climbed into a silver sedan. The car disappeared down the street. Greg muttered, "Weird day already," and grabbed his fishing gear. When the house went silent again, Linda stood by the window a long time, her reflection pale in the glass. Somewhere between suspicion and guilt, she whispered, "What are you really doing there, Evelyn?" That night, around 9, her phone rang again. "Linda, dear." Evelyn's voice was practically singing. "The air is so fresh here. The garden looks beautiful. The chickens are just perfect. You take such good care of them." Linda tried to smile. "Glad you're enjoying it, Mom." "Oh yes, I might stay another night. Maybe more. You don't mind, do you?" "Of course not," Linda said, though her pulse quickened. "Wonderful. Love you, dear. Good night." Then silence. No clucking. No night sounds behind her voice. Just a hollow stillness, as if Evelyn wasn't outside at all. Linda sat there for a while, phone still in her hand. Maybe she was being paranoid. Maybe the woman really had changed. But deep down, something sharp whispered, "Check the camera." She didn't. Not yet. That choice would haunt her by Monday morning. Sunday morning arrived with a soft drizzle. Gray light filtered through the kitchen blinds as Linda stirred her coffee, watching raindrops slide down the glass. She couldn't shake the unease from the night before. Evelyn hadn't texted once since that strangely cheerful call. Greg sat at the table scrolling his phone, half awake. "Your mom call yet?" she asked. "No, maybe bad reception out there." "She said she'd be back by tonight." Greg shrugged. "Let her enjoy herself. It's the first time she's done something useful in years." Linda didn't answer. She knew his words carried more fatigue than malice, but still, it wasn't right. Evelyn might be controlling and sharp-tongued, yet she was still his mother. By evening, there was still no call. The rain had stopped, and the air smelled of wet leaves. Linda tried calling Evelyn twice. The phone went straight to voicemail. Greg didn't even look up from the TV. She probably fell asleep early. Linda bit her lip. What if she slipped? Or, "Linda, she's fine." But the worry grew heavier with each hour. When Monday morning came, the sky was cold blue, sunlight bouncing off the parked cars outside. Greg left for work at 6. Linda began cleaning the kitchen, trying to shake off the strange tension twisting her chest. While wiping the table, she knocked over a pile of mail. A small folded paper fluttered to the floor. Her mother's handwriting. "Blink cam. Password, Bluefin78. Linda froze. The note. The camera. The thing she'd promised to check but never did. She picked up her phone, downloaded the app, entered the password. A moment later, the feed opened. Rows of time-stamped recordings filled the screen. Saturday, Sunday. The days Evelyn had been there. Her pulse thudded in her ears. She tapped Saturday, 9 hours a.m. The footage appeared grainy, black and white, taken from the shed corner. It showed the small backyard, chicken coop, garden beds, patio furniture. For a few seconds, nothing moved. Then Evelyn entered the frame. She stood still, scanning the area like a soldier on patrol. Her expression was alert, suspicious. She turned toward the camera once. Linda's heart skipped, then looked away, apparently unaware of it. Evelyn moved slowly around the yard, checking under the deck, behind the shed, even looking up at the roof. "What are you doing?" Linda whispered to herself. After several minutes, Evelyn vanished into the house. The yard stayed empty for half an hour, except for a few chickens wandering near the fence. Then Evelyn reappeared. She carried a large plastic bag. It twitched. Linda's stomach turned cold. The sound was faint but clear, frightened clucking. Evelyn reached into the coop, pulled out another bird, shoved it inside the bag, tied it tightly, and dragged it toward the fence. Linda's breath caught. She fast-forwarded. Evelyn worked methodically, one chicken after another, until the coop was silent. 32 chickens gone. Every single one. "What the hell?" Linda muttered, clutching her phone. But Evelyn didn't stop. She stepped into the garden and began stomping on the plants. Tomatoes, peppers, the flowers Linda had planted with her student seedlings last spring. She yanked them out by the roots and hurled them aside, lips moving in angry murmurs. Linda slowed the video, trying to read. "Let's see how perfect you look now." Then louder, almost smiling, "Greg will know who you really are." Linda's hand shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. The quiet suburban kitchen felt suddenly airless. She scrubbed a hand over her face, forcing herself to breathe. It wasn't a random outburst. It was planned. Evelyn kept working, smashing flower pots, overturning the patio chairs, dragging Greg's handmade table into the mud. Her movements were deliberate, cold, without hesitation. By late afternoon, the once green yard looked like a crime scene. Evelyn paused, hands on hips, surveying the wreckage with visible satisfaction. Then she smiled. Linda stared at that frozen image. The smile. It wasn't the polite one Evelyn wore at church. It was triumphant. She jumped to the next video. Sunday morning, 7 a.m. Evelyn stepped out again, broom in hand. For a second, Linda thought she meant to clean. But no. She swept the paths just enough to make the destruction look accidental. She moved flower debris closer to the fence, rearranged broken branches, dragged chairs to look like they'd been blown over by wind. It was a performance, a scene crafted for whoever would find the place next. Linda felt nausea rise in her throat. Evelyn wasn't losing her mind. She was staging a story, one that made Linda the negligent, careless wife. The next clip showed Evelyn talking on her phone, smiling, animated. Linda turned the volume up. "Everything's perfect here, sweetheart. The air's so fresh. The chickens are happy." The sound of her voice, cheerful lies echoing over the image of ruined plants and scattered feathers, made Linda's blood run cold. She stopped the video, pressed the phone to her chest, and sat motionless for a long minute. This wasn't senility. It was hate. And she had proof, every cruel second of it, recorded in gray pixels. Her mind raced. Should she tell Greg? Would he believe her? He'd spent his whole life defending his mother. Linda replayed one short scene. Evelyn kicking the flower bed, lips twisted, whispering something Linda could barely catch. Now she'll finally understand who runs this family. Tears burned her eyes, not from sadness, but from fury. For a moment she imagined driving straight to Aurora, confronting Evelyn face to face. But reason whispered, not yet. She needed to think, to plan. Outside, a train whistle blew faintly from downtown. The house felt smaller, tighter. Linda looked around her kitchen, spotless, quiet, and realized she'd never feel safe here again until she faced that woman. She deleted nothing. She downloaded every clip to her phone, backed them up to the cloud, evidence, proof. Then she whispered into the empty room, "You wanted a war, Evelyn? You've got one." By the time Greg got home that evening, Linda had replayed the footage at least a dozen times. Each viewing left her more hollow, more certain she couldn't unsee what she'd seen. Evelyn's smile haunted her. That self-satisfied, almost joyful expression in the middle of destruction. When Greg came in, dropping his jacket on the chair, she froze. He looked exhausted but peaceful, the kind of peace that comes when a man believes his world is still intact. She couldn't tell him. Not yet. "How was your day?" he asked, opening the fridge. "Fine," she lied. "Quiet." He nodded, grabbed a beer, and disappeared into the living room. Linda stared at the phone in her hand. The icon of the Blink app glowed like a secret she couldn't carry any longer. If she showed him the video, what would happen? Greg idolized his mother. She was the woman who raised him alone after his father's death. Linda could already hear him. "You must have misunderstood, honey. Mom would never. She needed a plan. Evidence wasn't enough. She needed control." That night, lying beside Greg's steady breathing, Linda watched the ceiling. The house hummed softly with the usual sounds, the fridge motor, a faint pipe rattle. But everything felt different now. Each creak was a reminder that she'd let a monster into her life and called her family. Morning came gray and tense. Greg left early again, kissing her cheek with the same casual tenderness as always. "Call Mom today," he said. "Make sure she's okay. She sounded tired when she texted last night." "She texted you?" Linda asked sharply. "Yeah, said she got home fine, had a wonderful weekend. Why?" Linda forced a smile. "Nothing, just making sure." When the door closed, she sank into a chair. Evelyn texting cheerful lies while Linda watched proof of her cruelty. It was almost genius, calculated. Linda made coffee she didn't drink and opened her laptop. She typed how to report vandalism in DuPage County. The official website loaded slowly, offering polite forms, phone numbers, disclaimers. Everything looked sterile, detached, not meant for crimes like this, for hate hidden behind family dinners and fake smiles. Her mother called mid-morning. "Hey, sweetheart, did you check the camera yet?" Linda hesitated. "I did." A pause. "And?" "You were right, Mom. It recorded something. Something I wish it hadn't." Martha's tone changed instantly. Steady, practical. "Tell me what happened." Linda told her everything. The bags, the chickens, the destruction, Evelyn's words. The line stayed silent for a long time. "Oh, honey," Martha said finally, "you can't keep this secret. Greg needs to know." "He won't believe me." "Then show him. He'll think I edited it. Then go to the police." Linda rubbed her temples. "That means the end of everything. His mother could be arrested." "And she should be," Martha said flatly. "That woman's dangerous. Don't protect her. Protect yourself." The words hit hard. Linda wasn't used to thinking of herself as someone who needed protection, but the videos had changed that. She spent the rest of the day pacing the house, alternately furious and terrified. Every scenario played in her head. The confrontation, Greg's disbelief, the collapse of the family she'd built for 20 years. By late afternoon, she'd made her decision. The truth had to come out, but it would come from her, on her terms. She copied the clearest clips to a new folder, labeled them by time and date, and backed them up to the cloud. Then she took a breath, picked up her phone, and dialed Greg. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, babe, everything okay?" "Not really," she said. "We need to talk." "About what?" "Your mother." A beat of silence. "What about her?" Linda looked out the window. The light was fading, the maples throwing long shadows across the lawn. "Greg," she said quietly, "your mother's a monster." She hung up before he could respond. Her hand trembled, but her voice had been steady. For the first time in days, she felt control return. Thin, fragile, but real. The phone rang again almost immediately. She let it buzz until it stopped. Then again, and again. She ignored them all. That night, she didn't cook. She didn't watch TV. She sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open, watching the same 30-second clip on repeat. Evelyn dragging the heavy bags to the fence line, her face calm and satisfied. When Greg came home, his voice echoed down the hallway, confused and wary. "Linda, what's going on? Why'd you say that?" She didn't answer right away. Finally, she turned the screen toward him. "Sit down." He stared, uncomprehending. "What is this?" "Proof." But before she could press play, she stopped. Not yet. Not when he was angry. He'd just see what he wanted to see. Instead, she said, "Tomorrow, when you're calm." "Calm? You call my mom a monster and tell me to calm down?" "I'll show you everything tomorrow." Greg stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head. "You're scaring me, Linda." When he went upstairs, she sat in silence, gripping the phone. Maybe Martha was right. Maybe the police would listen better than her own husband. At midnight she stood, poured herself a glass of water, and looked out the window again. The street was empty. Across the road, a motion sensor porch light flicked on and off, catching nothing but falling leaves. Linda whispered to herself, barely a sound, "This ends tomorrow." Then she turned off the lights and climbed the stairs, leaving her phone charging beside the silent evidence that would destroy her marriage, or finally set her free. Morning came too bright for the kind of day it was going to be. The light through the blinds felt harsh, exposing everything that had been hidden. Linda sat at the kitchen table long before Greg woke up. The phone was beside her, the Blink app open, the paused frame of Evelyn's smirk frozen on screen. She'd slept barely an hour. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that smile. At 6, Greg came downstairs, still half asleep. "You're up early," he muttered, grabbing a mug. "We need to talk," she said. Her voice came out calm, eerily calm. Greg blinked. "Is this about yesterday? Because that... It's about your mother." He sighed, set the coffee pot down. "Linda, please. Whatever's going on between you two, I don't want to... You don't have a choice," she said, and tapped the phone. The video started playing. Evelyn appeared on the screen, stepping into the backyard, cautious, glancing around. Greg leaned closer, frowning. "That's our place?" "Yes, Saturday morning." At first he said nothing. He watched as Evelyn stuffed the first chicken into the bag. His face changed. Confusion, disbelief, horror. What the hell is she doing? "Keep watching." She let it play. Evelyn crushing plants, overturning the table, muttering to herself. Then the words came, faint but clear. "Greg will see what kind of woman she really is." When the clip ended, Greg just sat there, frozen. The only sound was the hum of the fridge. That's not real," he said finally. "It can't be." "It's real, Greg. From the security camera Mom installed. Time-stamped, cloud-backed, everything." He rubbed his forehead. "No, maybe she was confused. Maybe..." "Does she look confused?" Linda snapped. "Does she look sick or senile?" She knew exactly what she was doing. Greg stood up, pacing. Jesus Christ. "She destroyed everything, Greg. The garden, the chickens, everything we built. For what? To make me look bad?" Greg turned toward her, eyes wide, still searching for some version of the truth that hurt less. "Why would she..." "Because she hates me," Linda said quietly. "She always has. You just never wanted to see it." The air in the kitchen went heavy. Greg sat again, covering his face with both hands. For a long time, neither spoke. Then he said, almost pleading, "Please don't tell anyone. Let me talk to her first." Linda stared at him. "Talk? After that? You think a conversation fixes this?" "She's my mother." "And I'm your wife," Linda said sharply. "I'm the one she tried to humiliate." He didn't answer. The silence was the worst kind. Not angry, just hollow. Finally, she said, "I'm going to the police." His head snapped up. "No, absolutely not. I'm done protecting her. Linda, she's 73. Then she's 73 years old and evil." Greg flinched. She stood, grabbed her phone and purse, and walked out before he could stop her. The DuPage County Sheriff's Department looked exactly how she imagined. Clean, fluorescent, indifferent. A young officer at the front desk glanced up as she approached. "I need to report a crime," Linda said. He handed her a clipboard. "What kind of crime, ma'am?" She hesitated. "Vandalism, theft, maybe more." A few minutes later, she sat across from Detective Andrew Martin, a man with tired eyes and the expression of someone who's seen everything. But maybe not this. "Tell me what happened," he said. Linda explained. The property, the chickens, the footage, the motive. He listened without interrupting, occasionally scribbling notes. "You're saying your mother-in-law did this?" "Yes." "Any witnesses?" "The camera." She slid her phone across the desk. He watched for less than a minute before pausing. "Okay, that's..." Deliberate. He looked up. Do you have proof the property belongs to you? It's under my husband's name, but we both maintain it. That's fine. We'll need the videos and a statement. When she finished the paperwork, Martin said, We'll send someone out to verify. You'll be contacted within 48 hours. Linda thanked him, stood, then stopped at the door. Detective, just make sure she doesn't twist it. She's very good at pretending. He nodded. We see that a lot. Greg was waiting when she came home. He stood in the hallway, arms crossed, eyes red from either anger or tears. She couldn't tell. You really did it, he said quietly. Yes. You called the cops on my mother. She left me no choice. Greg exhaled slowly, like he was trying not to explode. You could have talked to me. I tried. No, you didn't, he snapped. You blindsided me. Linda met his gaze. You were never going to believe me. He turned away, running a hand through his hair. Do you realize what this will do to us? Yes, she said, and I'm ready for it. That stopped him. He stared like seeing her for the first time. Ready to destroy our family? Ready to stop pretending we have one? Greg left the room without another word. She heard the door slam upstairs. Linda leaned against the wall, shaking. Every part of her wanted to collapse, to apologize, to make it stop. But another part, colder, clearer, whispered, You did what she wouldn't. You told the truth. That night, she sat alone at the table again. The phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She opened it. Evelyn, I heard what you did. You think you've won. You have no idea what you've started. Linda stared at the message until the words blurred. Then she deleted it and whispered, Oh, I know exactly what I've started. The next 48 hours crawled by like a slow fever. Greg barely spoke. When he did, it was to ask short, logistical questions about bills, groceries, work schedules. The space between them had become a fog of silence that felt thicker than anger. Linda spent Monday night on the couch, her laptop open, checking emails from the sheriff's office. Detective Martin had confirmed they would visit the Aurora property Tuesday morning. She replied simply, I'll meet you there. By dawn, she was already on the road. The drive felt surreal. The same familiar highway she and Greg had used for years on weekends, now leading to the scene of betrayal. The autumn fields flashed by in blurs of gold and gray. Her hands clenched the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. When she pulled up to the house, the front gate hung crooked, one hinge half broken. The yard was quiet except for the faint rustle of wind through the trees. She stood there for a moment, breathing in the scent of wet soil and rot. Detective Martin arrived a few minutes later with 2 officers. Morning, Mrs. Carter, he said, polite but cautious. Linda, she corrected. Mrs. Carter's the problem. He gave a faint nod and walked around the property, taking photos, making notes. When they reached the chicken coop, one of the officers let out a low whistle. Empty cages, feathers scattered like snow. Pretty thorough job, Martin said. You said she removed them herself? It's all on video, Linda said. She even talked to herself while doing it, like she was proud. He crouched to examine the footprints near the fence. Size looks about right for an older woman. Light step, small shoe. I'll need to compare this with her footwear. Linda exhaled. So you believe me now? Martin stood. I believed you before. Now I can prove it. They walked the rest of the yard in silence. The garden was wrecked, the soil churned into muddy chaos. The hand-built wooden table Greg had once been so proud of lay on its side, cracked in half. Linda swallowed hard. He made that table. For our anniversary. Martin looked at her for a second, then turned back to his notes. We'll file this under property damage and theft. I'll need you at the station later for a full statement. She nodded. Whatever it takes. When the police car finally left, the silence felt heavier than before. Linda stood in the middle of the ruined garden, her shoes sinking into the mud, and realized there was nothing left to save. Not the flowers, not the coop, maybe not even her marriage. That evening, Greg came home late. His face looked older, the lines around his mouth deeper. "How'd it go?" he asked flatly. "They saw everything. Took photos, took prints. And now what? Now she faces charges." Greg's jaw tightened. "You really think locking her up helps anything?" "She destroyed our property, Greg." "She's my mother." "She's a criminal," Linda snapped. "If it were anyone else, you'd say the same." He slammed his hand on the counter. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Watching her get dragged through the mud." Linda flinched. "You think I wanted any of this?" "I don't know what to think anymore." He walked out of the kitchen, leaving her alone with the echo of the slammed door. Later, she sat on the couch, staring at her phone. There were no new messages from Detective Martin, only a single unread voicemail from an unknown number. She pressed play. "Linda," Evelyn's voice said softly, "you're making a mistake, dear. You don't understand the things I can make people believe. You've turned my son against me, but I can turn him back." A click, then silence. Linda stared at the phone, pulse racing. Evelyn wasn't scared. She was warning her. The next day, the police summoned Evelyn to the station. Linda went too. She needed to see it, needed to know the woman was finally facing what she'd done. Evelyn arrived wearing a neat beige coat and her usual gentle smile. She looked like someone's favorite grandmother, not the woman who'd destroyed a yard out of hatred. Detective Martin motioned her into the interview room. Linda sat behind the glass with another officer, watching. At first, Evelyn denied everything. She said the video was edited, that Linda had deep psychological problems, and was jealous of Greg's close bond with his mother. Her tone was calm, almost pitying. But when Martin showed her the raw, time-stamped files, something in her expression cracked. She stared at the screen, her own face, her own voice, then laughed quietly. "So what if I did it?" she said. "She deserved it. She's been poisoning my son against me for years." "Mrs. Carter," Martin said evenly, "you understand this is a criminal act?" "You don't get it," Evelyn replied. "That woman destroyed my family long before I touched a single thing on that property." Linda felt the blood drain from her face. The venom in those words wasn't madness. It was conviction. Evelyn truly believed she was the victim. When the interview ended, the detective turned to Linda. "She just confessed. That'll help." Linda nodded, numb. "Did she sound sorry?" Martin shook his head. "Not even a little." By the end of the week, charges were filed: theft, property destruction, and trespassing. It made local news. Elderly woman accused of vandalizing family home. The headline felt surreal, almost cruel. Neighbors texted Linda, some offering sympathy, others gossip. Greg said nothing. He slept in the guest room now. Every morning he left early, returning long after dark. One night, Linda found him standing in the kitchen, staring at the sink, his reflection hollow in the window. "She called me today," he said. Linda's stomach turned. What did she say? "That she forgives me, that you'll regret this." He turned to her, eyes tired but burning. "Do you? Do I what?" "Regret it." Linda met his gaze. "Every minute, but I'd still do it again." Greg nodded once, slowly, like accepting a verdict. Then he walked upstairs without another word. That night, Linda lay awake listening to the rain. The house creaked, wind pressed against the windows, and for the first time she realized the silence didn't feel safe anymore. Justice was coming, but peace wasn't. She turned on her side, eyes open in the dark, and whispered to no one. She wanted war. I just made it official. Winter came early to Illinois. The first snow had already powdered the roofs by the time the county court date was set. Linda walked up the courthouse steps feeling like a ghost in her own story. Cameras and reporters waited by the doors. They weren't here for her, but for the headline, 73-year-old grandmother charged with vandalizing son's home. Inside, The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly. The air smelled like paper, coffee, and disinfectant. Greg was already there, sitting alone on the bench near the back. He didn't look up when she entered. His shoulders were hunched, his hands clenched together. For a second, she thought about sitting beside him, but stopped herself. They were strangers now, linked only by damage. Evelyn entered a few minutes later, escorted by her lawyer, a tall man with 2 white teeth and an expensive suit. She wore a dark wool coat and a scarf that made her look fragile, almost saintly. She didn't glance at Linda. The bailiff called the room to order. Case number 22431, State of Illinois versus Evelyn Carter. Linda sat straight, eyes fixed on the woman who'd upended her life. The prosecutor began calmly presenting the evidence. Photos of the yard, the empty chicken coop, the smashed table, and finally, the footage. On the screen, Evelyn moved through the gray backyard, efficient and emotionless, bagging chickens, tearing plants, whispering to herself. The room stayed silent. Even the judge paused the video once, watching closely before nodding to continue. Then came the audio clip. Evelyn's voice saying, "Greg will finally see who she really is." When the clip ended, the prosecutor turned. "Mrs. Carter, do you deny this is you?" Evelyn's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client suffers from occasional memory lapses and confusion. We contend she was in a state of emotional distress, not of criminal intent." Evelyn straightened. "I wasn't confused," she said suddenly. Her voice was steady, defiant. "I did it because she deserved it." Her lawyer froze. "Mrs. Carter, please." "No," Evelyn continued louder. "She took my son from me. She made him her servant. She humiliated me. I only gave her a taste of what she's done to me for years." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Greg's head dropped into his hands. Linda just stared. Not angry anymore, just empty. The judge's gavel struck once. "Mrs. Carter, you'll remain silent unless spoken to." Evelyn smirked, folded her hands, and went quiet. The prosecutor said nothing for several seconds, letting the silence linger. Then, "The state rests, Your Honor." During recess, Linda stepped into the hallway. The courthouse windows overlooked the snow-covered street, where people hurried past, bundled in scarves, unaware of the war unfolding inside. Greg appeared behind her. "You satisfied now?" She turned slowly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "She's old, Linda. She could go to jail because of this." "She should go to jail," Linda said evenly. "She destroyed everything we had." Greg shook his head. "You've already destroyed it." He started to walk away, but she called after him, her voice sharper than she meant. "She confessed, Greg. You heard her." "I heard a woman who's lost everything," he said. "Just like us." Then he was gone. When court resumed, Evelyn's lawyer tried to rebuild what was left. He painted her as a lonely widow, acting under emotional strain, implying that Linda's ambition and control had pushed her over the edge. Linda listened without blinking. The lies rolled off her like static, meaningless, predictable. Then it was her turn. She stood at the witness stand, hand raised for the oath, and faced the judge. "Mrs. Carter," the prosecutor asked, "can you describe your relationship with the defendant?" Linda's throat tightened. "She's my husband's mother. For 30 years, I tried to be her family." "And did you ever mistreat her?" "No. I cooked for her, visited her, took her on vacations with us. I thought she was just difficult. I didn't know she hated me that much." "What was your reaction when you saw the footage?" "I thought I was losing my mind." Her voice trembled once, then steadied. "But then I realized I was finally seeing the truth." When the prosecutor finished, the defense declined to cross-examine. Evelyn sat unmoving, her eyes fixed somewhere beyond the judge's bench, as if this was all beneath her. The verdict came 3 hours later. "Guilty on counts of property destruction, theft, and trespassing," the judge said. Given the defendant's age and lack of prior convictions, the court sentences her to 2 years probation, mandatory community service, and restitution for damages. Evelyn's lips curled. Community service. I can live with that. But the judge wasn't done. You are also ordered to attend psychological counseling and stay at least 100 yards away from the victim. Evelyn turned her head then, meeting Linda's eyes for the first time. "You think this changes anything?" she whispered. "He'll come back to me." Linda didn't answer. Outside, snow was falling harder. Greg stood near the courthouse steps, hands deep in his coat pockets. "She'll never forgive you," he said quietly. "She doesn't have to." "You think this is justice?" "It's the only kind left," Linda said. They stood there for a moment, strangers again. Finally, Greg said, "I need time." "I know. Don't call me for a while." Then he walked away, disappearing into the blur of white streets. Linda watched until his figure faded completely. She thought she'd feel relief, but all she felt was the cold, vast, numbing, endless. She whispered into the snow, "She wanted me gone. Now she got what she wanted." And for the first time since it all began, she realized Evelyn hadn't just broken a garden or a marriage. She'd broken everything. 2 weeks after the verdict, Linda moved through her house like a guest. Every sound felt too loud. Every quiet felt heavier than before. The fridge hummed. The clock ticked. Outside, children's laughter drifted faintly through the cold suburban air. Other people's families, still whole. Greg hadn't come home in days. He stayed with a friend from the repair shop, claiming he needed space. Linda didn't argue. There was nothing left to argue about. Most nights she sat by the kitchen window, scrolling through old photos on her phone. Barbecues, birthdays, the backyard before it turned into a graveyard of feathers. In every picture, Evelyn was there, smiling, performing warmth. Linda wondered how long that smile had been fake. The first week of Evelyn's community service began quietly. She was assigned to clean public parks in Naperville. Light work, supervised by a charity program. The local newspaper ran a short piece, "Local Woman Begins Restitution After Family Property Dispute." No one mentioned Linda by name, but everyone in town knew. When she went to the grocery store, she felt the stares. People whispered, some with sympathy, some with judgment. The worst were the ones who said nothing, the polite smiles that said, "We read about you." Her mother called daily. "You're strong, honey. You did the right thing." Linda nodded, even though strength felt like a rumor someone else had started. On Friday morning, an envelope appeared in her mailbox. No return address, just her name written in careful cursive. Inside was a single photo, printed from an old phone. Evelyn standing in front of a row of pine trees, holding Greg's arm, both smiling. On the back of the photo, written in neat blue ink, "He was mine first. He'll be mine again." Linda's pulse spiked. She looked up and scanned the street. Calm, ordinary, nothing out of place. She called Detective Martin. "I got something," she said, her voice steady only because she forced it to be. Within the hour, he arrived. "You kept the envelope?" "Didn't touch a thing," she said, handing it over in a plastic bag. He examined it briefly. "Postmark's local. I'll run prints, but don't expect much. Could be wiped." Linda leaned against the counter. "She's supposed to stay 100 yards away." "She hasn't broken that yet," he said. "But this is harassment. I'll note it." He hesitated, then added quietly, "You might want to think about a restraining order." Linda almost laughed. "What's another piece of paper going to do?" Martin looked at her for a long moment. "Sometimes it's not for her. It's for you. A reminder that you're allowed to move on." When he left, Linda stood by the door long after the sound of his car faded. Move on. The words sounded simple, almost gentle, but they felt impossible. That night, she went back through the Blink archive. The old recordings she still hadn't deleted. She told herself she just wanted closure, but really, she needed proof that she wasn't crazy, that all of it had actually happened. Video after video, Evelyn's figure moved through the grainy footage, repeating the same cycle of destruction. Linda stopped on one frame, the older woman standing perfectly still, looking straight toward the camera lens, expression unreadable. It hit her that Evelyn must have realized she was being watched, at least for a moment, and instead of stopping, she'd chosen to stare, a wordless declaration. "I know you see me. I don't care." Linda shut the laptop. Enough. On Sunday, Greg finally came by. He looked thinner, tired, but calmer. "I came for my things," he said quietly. "Of course," Linda replied. He moved through the house without looking at her. The sound of drawers opening and closing filled the space where love used to live. When he was nearly done, he stopped in the doorway. "She's been working at the park," he said, "picking up trash. People take pictures." "I saw," Linda said. "Good for her." Greg frowned. "She's old, Linda." "So am I. At least I feel that way." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You could have talked to me before you called the cops." "You still think that would have changed anything?" "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe not, but we'll never know." He picked up his bag and turned toward the door. "Where will you go?" she asked. "Nowhere far." "Then don't disappear completely." He hesitated, then gave a small nod. "Take care of yourself." Then he was gone again, and this time, the silence felt final. That evening, Linda stood in the backyard. Snow covered the wreckage now, softening the outlines of everything Evelyn had destroyed. For the first time, it looked peaceful again. She closed her eyes, breathing in the sharp air. Somewhere far off, a church bell rang. She thought of Evelyn in her coat, sweeping sidewalks for strangers, muttering to herself about betrayal and justice. Linda whispered into the cold, "I hope you find peace, Evelyn, because I already found the truth." She turned back toward the house, the light from the kitchen glowing faintly through the window. It wasn't warmth exactly, but it was something close. For the first time in months, she felt the smallest flicker of calm. Not victory, not forgiveness, just a fragile beginning. Then, from behind her, the faint sound of a car door closing broke the stillness. She turned sharply, but the street was empty. Just the wind and falling snow. Still, a shiver ran down her spine, the kind that said the story wasn't over yet. The following week passed in fragments. Work, silence, sleep, all of it mechanical, stripped of color. Linda tried to build routine out of the wreckage. Wake up at 6, coffee, news, a walk around the block. She told herself that normalcy was the only kind of revenge Evelyn couldn't touch. But peace never lasted. Every few days, small reminders appeared, like cracks beneath painted walls. First came the phone calls, unknown numbers. Each time she picked up, silence. Once, faint breathing. Another time, a whisper she couldn't make out. Maybe just the static of wind. She blocked them all, but new ones appeared. Then came the smell. One morning, Linda stepped outside to get the mail and froze. The faint, acrid scent of smoke drifted from the backyard. She ran to the gate. Someone had thrown a small pile of burned feathers near the fence. Her throat tightened. Not a random prank. A message. She called Detective Martin again. He arrived within an hour, eyes shadowed with fatigue. "Burned feathers," he repeated. "No note?" "Not this time." He crouched, gloved hands turning over the remains. "We'll test them, but I'm guessing they're from a store. Maybe symbolic. Maybe intimidation." "She's supposed to stay away," Linda said, voice shaking. "She has," he said carefully. "We checked her schedule. She's still reporting for community service. Someone else might be doing this." Someone else? Sympathizers, friends. These things spread. He stood. "Keep your doors locked. Get motion lights installed. And call me if anything new shows up." She nodded, but the reassurance was hollow. Martin could protect her from crimes, not from obsession. That night, the house felt too big. Linda left the TV on for background noise, a cooking show no one was watching. At midnight, she checked the Blink app again. The camera feed glowed faintly. Nothing unusual. Empty yard, pale snow reflecting streetlight. She stared for a while, waiting for movement. Then, a flicker. Something at the edge of the frame. She leaned closer. A shadow crossing the snow, thin, slow. It stopped near the gate. The image blurred, but the shape, the outline of a person, was unmistakable. Her pulse hammered. She tapped record manually, though the camera was already doing it. The figure lingered for a few seconds, then turned away and disappeared behind the trees. Linda stayed frozen long after the screen went dark. By morning, she'd already downloaded the clip and sent it to Detective Martin. His reply came an hour later. Could be anyone. Too dark for ID. But we'll increase patrols near your street. She didn't feel safer. 3 days later, while returning from the store, she saw a familiar car parked 2 houses down. A beige Toyota Camry, faded paint, dented bumper. Evelyn's car. Linda stopped in the middle of the road. The car was empty, the driver's seat reclined, no one inside. Her heartbeat spiked. She fumbled for her phone, took a photo, and sent it to Martin. His answer was immediate. We're on it. Stay inside. But she didn't go inside. She walked slowly toward the car, every step heavy, her breath fogging in the cold. When she reached the driver's side, she peered through the window. The seat was empty, but on the dashboard lay a single folded piece of paper. She opened the door. It wasn't locked. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the note. You took my son. I'll take your peace. She dropped it instantly, eyes scanning the street. Empty. No Evelyn, no movement, just wind scraping dry leaves along the pavement. That night, Linda didn't sleep. Every creak of the house made her flinch. She checked the doors 3 times, windows twice. By 2 a.m., she sat in the living room with all the lights on, clutching her phone like a weapon. At dawn, she went outside and found the car gone. By mid-morning, Martin called again. We questioned her. She denies leaving town. Her supervisor backs her up, but we're not dropping it. She's lying, Linda said flatly. Maybe, or maybe she's getting help. From who? Could be anyone who thinks she's the victim in all this. You'd be surprised how fast sympathy spreads once the word elderly shows up in headlines. He sighed. Look, Linda, I know you want closure, but sometimes there isn't any. Sometimes people like her don't stop. They just shift the game. Linda swallowed. Then I'll shift with her. That weekend, she bought a second camera and installed it inside the kitchen facing the backyard door. She reinforced the locks and placed motion lights under the eaves. Every beep and blink felt like armor. Saturday evening, she opened a bottle of wine, turned off the news, and tried to read, but her eyes kept drifting to the window. Outside, the snow glittered under the streetlights. At 10 p.m., her phone buzzed. Notification from Blink. Motion detected. Her heart lurched. She opened the feed. A figure stood near the fence again. Same coat, same slow posture, this time closer. For a second, the face lifted toward the camera, blurred, pale, framed by a scarf. Evelyn. Linda gasped, stumbling backward. The image vanished as the figure turned and melted into the dark. She called 911 with shaking hands. The dispatcher's voice was calm, rehearsed. Stay inside, ma'am. Officers are on their way. 10 minutes later, flashing lights cut through the night. 2 officers swept the property, flashlights moving over snow and fence lines. No footprints, no signs of entry, nothing but wind. Could have been reflection, ma'am, one officer said gently. Light plays tricks this time of year. Linda wanted to scream, but exhaustion replaced fury. She just nodded, thanked them, and locked the door again. When they left, she sat on the stairs, whispering to herself, she was there. I know she was there. She checked the footage again. The recording was corrupted, static, then black. The moment the figure appeared, the video cut out completely. Her mother's voice echoed in her head from months earlier. That woman's dangerous. Don't protect her. Protect yourself. Linda looked around her dark kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound left. It hit her then. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about survival. By December, Linda had stopped pretending life was normal. The house looked neat, but it wasn't alive. Curtains stayed half-drawn, lights burned all night. She moved through rooms quietly, like noise itself might summon something. The police never found proof Evelyn had come back. No prints, no tire tracks, Detective Martin said. Maybe she's taunting you from a distance. But Linda didn't need proof. She could feel Evelyn's presence, the same cold pressure she'd felt that day in the courtroom. Smug, patient, waiting. Every small sound had meaning now. A door creak meant warning. A phone vibration meant threat. Sleep became a rumor. Food tasted like paper. One evening, the motion alert chimed again. Linda froze, heart hammering. She opened the app, nothing but static. She stared until the pixels steadied and revealed her own reflection. That was when she realized the camera inside the kitchen had turned, slightly, but enough that it faced her, not the door. She hadn't touched it. Her body went cold. She shut the laptop and forced herself to think logically. Maybe she bumped it. Maybe it slipped. But deep down, she knew someone had been here. The next morning, she called Martin. "It's moved," she said. "The camera. Someone was inside." He came personally, checked the locks, walked the perimeter. "No forced entry," he said. "Any keys missing?" "No." "Anyone else have a copy?" "Greg," she said softly. Martin looked at her for a long moment. "You think he came in?" "I don't know anymore." He hesitated, then said, "He's not listed as a suspect, but maybe it's time you change the locks anyway." Linda did that same day. A locksmith came, worked quietly while she watched the snow falling outside. When he left, she stood at the door for a full minute before turning the deadbolt. The click sounded like armor. That night, the phone rang again, not unknown this time. Greg. She let it ring once, twice, then picked up. "Hello?" "Linda." His voice was flat. "We need to talk." "About what?" "Mom's not well." Linda laughed once, sharp. "Now she's sick?" "She's not eating. She talks about you constantly. She keeps saying she just wanted to protect me." "She wanted to destroy me." "She says you ruined her life." Linda's grip tightened on the phone. "You believe her?" "I don't know what to believe," he said quietly. "I just know you both scare me." The line went dead. She stood there, phone still in her hand, pulse pounding. For a moment she wanted to call back, to beg him to see the truth, but then she remembered Evelyn's note. He was mine first. Let him go, she thought. Let them destroy each other if they must. Christmas came with no music, no tree, no family. Snow blanketed the yard like a burial shroud. Linda spent the day fixing things that didn't need fixing. A drawer handle, a loose cabinet hinge, anything to keep her hands busy. That evening, she heard footsteps outside. Slow, crunching snow. She froze, listening. A shadow passed the kitchen window. Linda grabbed her phone, dialed 911, whispering her address. The dispatcher said, "Stay on the line, ma'am. Units are close." Then, a knock. Soft, polite. 3 taps. Linda didn't move. The knock came again. Through the frosted glass, she could see only a vague outline. A figure in a coat, head covered. "Mrs. Carter?" a voice called. A man's, calm, official. "Sheriff's Department." She hesitated, then opened the door a few inches. 2 deputies stood on the porch, snow dusting their jackets. "Ma'am, we're sorry to bother you," one said. "There's been an incident." Linda's heart stuttered. "What kind of incident?" "It's your mother-in-law, Evelyn Carter. She was found unconscious at a service site this afternoon. Cold exposure. They took her to Mercy Hospital." Linda's first reaction wasn't pity. It was disbelief. "She's alive?" "Yes, ma'am. Stable now, but you might want to come." For a long second, she said nothing. Then quietly, "No, I don't." The deputies exchanged a look. Understood. We just thought you should know. When they left, Linda closed the door slowly and leaned against it. Her body felt weightless, like she'd been unplugged from gravity. Evelyn was alive. That meant the nightmare wasn't over. The next morning, she called the hospital anyway. A nurse answered, polite and detached. Mrs. Carter's condition is stable, mild frostbite, dehydration. She's asking for her son. What about me? Linda asked. A pause. She asked that we not notify you further. Linda hung up. She should have felt relief, but instead a dull ache spread through her chest, the ache of unfinished endings. She opened the blinds. Outside, 2 police cars idled down the street, watching. The world felt smaller every day. That night, she sat by the window again, looking at her reflection in the glass. The woman staring back at her looked older, harder, like someone who'd survived a war that no one else saw. Her phone buzzed once. A text. No name, just a number. Tell him I forgive him. But not you. Linda's stomach dropped. She typed back without thinking. You should have stayed down, Evelyn. Then she deleted the message, powered off the phone, and whispered into the dark. You can haunt me all you want. You already lost. Outside, snow began to fall again. Silent, relentless, covering every trace of the footsteps that had led to this point. Linda watched it for a long time, knowing peace wouldn't come soon, maybe never. But somewhere beneath the fear, a small truth flickered. Survival wasn't pretty, but it was hers. And that, finally, was something Evelyn couldn't steal. January arrived brittle and gray. The new year meant nothing. No resolutions, no lists, just colder mornings and longer silences. Linda lived quietly now, as if movement itself could break the thin layer of calm holding her life together. Evelyn was out of the hospital and back home in Aurora. Greg visited her twice a week. He stopped texting Linda altogether. That suited her fine, or so she told herself. Every few days, the sheriff's office still checked in. Detective Martin called once, just to ask how she was holding up. I'm still breathing, she said. That's something, he replied. We closed the case, but if she contacts you again, call me. Don't worry, Linda said. I'll call. They both knew she wouldn't. The house had changed since everything. She'd sold the old dining table, replaced it with a small round one that fit a single chair. The wedding photo, once framed in the hallway, now sat in a box under the bed. She stopped wearing her ring after it started to feel like a shackle. The backyard remained untouched. Snow covered the broken garden and empty chicken coop, erasing it all like memory wanted to help her forget. One night, while sorting paperwork, Linda found a flash drive her mother had mailed her before the trial, a backup of the Blink footage. She'd never opened it. She plugged it in, half curious, half afraid. The familiar gray images loaded one by one. Evelyn, the yard, the destruction. But something new caught her eye. A few seconds at the end she hadn't seen before. Evelyn stood in the garden, still smiling, still muttering to herself. Then she looked straight at the camera and said clearly, You'll never be free of me, Linda. You'll build walls, change locks, but I'll always live in his voice, his memory. That's the part you can't erase. Linda's stomach clenched. She pressed stop and ejected the drive. For a long time, she sat staring at the dark screen, realizing Evelyn had been right about one thing. She couldn't erase what had happened, but she could decide what stayed. She went outside. The air bit at her skin, sharp and clean. In the yard's center, under a drift of snow, a corner of broken wood stuck out, the remains of Greg's table. She knelt, brushed the snow away, and began pulling the pieces free. It took hours. By morning, her fingers were numb, her back sore, but the table's top was mostly intact. She sanded it, cleaned it, and set it on 2 cinder blocks in the garage. The wood was scarred, but not dead. She didn't know why she did it. Maybe to prove to herself that something ruined could still be repurposed. Weeks passed. The calls stopped. The shadows outside became just shadows again. One Sunday, she saw Greg's name on her phone for the first time in months. She hesitated, then answered. "Hey," he said quietly. "I just wanted to tell you, Mom's moving in with my cousin, out of state, Florida." Linda felt her shoulders drop, the first real exhale in months. "Good." "She wanted me to say she forgives you." Linda gave a dry laugh. "Of course she does. She also said she prays for you every day." "That part's worse," Linda said. He was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry for everything." She closed her eyes. "I know you are. Maybe someday we can talk. Maybe." When the call ended, she didn't cry. She didn't feel anger either, just a strange, soft emptiness, the kind that comes after a storm finally moves offshore. Spring came late that year. The snow melted, leaving muddy patches and broken soil. Linda planted new things: lavender, tomatoes, mint. She rebuilt the chicken coop but never bought more chickens. She wanted the space, not the noise. One afternoon, while tending the garden, she heard footsteps by the fence. A boy from next door, maybe 10 years old, stood there watching. "Hi," he said shyly. "My dad says you used to have chickens." "I did," Linda said. "They were noisy but friendly." "Are you getting more?" "Not yet, maybe later." "Okay." He waved and ran off. Linda smiled faintly. The first time she'd smiled without forcing it. That evening, she sat on the back steps with a cup of tea, watching the sky turn amber. The air smelled like new soil and thawed earth. For once, her mind was quiet. She thought about Evelyn, somewhere under a softer sun, maybe sitting by another window, still convinced she'd won. Let her. Winning had always been Evelyn's language. Surviving was Linda's. She whispered into the twilight, "You were right about one thing. You'll always live in his memory. But I'll live in mine. And mine finally belongs to me." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and something like forgiveness. She stayed there until the stars came out, listening to the stillness she had earned. Not perfect, not peaceful, but hers. When she finally went inside, she didn't check the cameras. She didn't need to. For the first time in a year, she turned off every light, locked the door once, and slept. She no longer checks the cameras. She no longer waits for calls. Sometimes, peace isn't found. It's built, one truth at a time. If you believe truth should never stay hidden, subscribe, like, and share this story. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done in her place?